Hi, I'm Patrick Jagir with Cosmic Alchemist Astrology, and welcome to February 2022. So I have had more than a 30-day YouTube hiatus. You guys haven't heard from me, seen me in a while. It's been a friggin' hell of the last 2 months. Just so much going on. You can all feel the state of the world. I've had a lot going on in my own life. It was kind of a miracle I got the January video out there. And I'm running late on February here. What is it? It's the 9th today? Holy shit. Yeah. It's the 9th of February and I'm just doing this. We're in just a really weird sort of a space right now in the world. And things are really rearranging. So you see people all around you just, they're counting the days until the pre-2019 world comes back. And there are other people who've been, trying to go back into other points in time. Some people want to go back to the good old days of the 1980s and Ronnie Reagan and shaking their fists at the commies, and other people want to go back to the civil rights era or the Franklin Roosevelt days. Everybody's got some magical point in the past that they want to go to. They want to go back to their college days or this particular decade in their life. Well, it ain't going to happen. And that's a big theme this month. So one of the themes this month is, my title was kind of a lot of different things all thrown together. One of them is about planting seeds. And that is a big theme for February in general. February 2nd is the ancient pre-Christian holy day of Imbolc. Imbolc means in the belly. So it was a time of the year where it's warm enough, say like North Carolina where I live, you can plant your first seeds, get your first crop going. And in temperate places like this, and even in colder places, what they had in common was it was the time of the year when you wanted your livestock to start breeding, so that the calves or the whatevers, cows, pigs, sheep, goats, horses, you wanted all that livestock to be born in a timely fashion in the warmer months before winter came back. So yeah, Imbolc was also the goddess Bridget's day. Bridget was, they couldn't get rid of her in the British Isles, so they turned her into Saint Bridget. But she was the goddess that was presiding over this fertility festival. It's also called Candlemas. It's sort of the Christian version of it. So right at the beginning of the month we had this Imbolc. So that's all about planting the seeds for your future. Now Imbolc is it's basically the first day of spring. So most people will tell you, wait, isn't the first day of spring the spring equinox on the 21st, 22nd of March? My answer to that is definitely not. Spring is halfway through at the equinox. The equinox is the midpoint, and it's the point on which the year shifts. So you get that equal day, equal night, and then the day after the spring equinox on 322, which is why Skull and Bones have it. On 322, you get more light than you have dark. So that's the middle of the spring. So, in a basic thing with that is equinoxes and solstices are actually midpoints of seasons. So the solstice that comes before the spring equinox is December 21st, winter solstice. That, until very recently, until maybe 100 years ago, was called Midwinter's Day, because it's the day of the least light. So the light from June 21st, it keeps waning. It reaches the low point at December 21st. And on the 22nd, it bounces back. It's God's sun rises again. on those days in December, well, actually right on the 25th. So that's a midpoint. Winter solstice, December 21st, midwinter's day, June 21st, summer solstice, midsummer's day. So when you go right in between a solstice and an equinox, those are the starts of the seasons. So yeah, first week of February, that's when the first day of spring happens. That's what Groundhog Day is all about too. The groundhog they have this ritual where they watch the groundhog peek out of his hole and see if it's safe or warm enough to come out. So that's the first day of spring. So with all that said, with this Imbolc, with this fertility festival, with planting the seeds, this month has a lot to do with planting the seeds. Because at this time of the year, when you do your first planting, whether that's figurative or literal, you're thinking about what you want in the coming year, what harvest you want, how you're going to get that harvest. So even though most of us don't grow food, we still have harvests that we yield. Usually it's, if you work a job, if you're an employee, usually your harvest is like the money you get out of it. If you run your own business, it's the money, but it's also what you're creating, that's a harvest too. So there's a lot of different types of harvests. Our relationships are harvests of sorts, like what the relationship turns into, what you get out of it. And since we just had a Venus retrograde, it's like that's kind of like been on everyone's mind too. So there is that about this month, this planting the seeds and thinking about the future, how are you going to get that future. Then too, I also called it fight or lay down, because in the wider world right now, I don't want to say we're running out of time, but we're in a bit of an end game here, especially with the whole deep state dynamic and all the shit they're pulling. They're running out of time. They have objectives they want to pull off. They have their view of what they want the world to look like. And they're very desperate. We're seeing COVID, the whole narrative, absolutely fall apart. And that's why we have this whole, that's why we have this whole prospect of war in Ukraine, because the White House picked up the phone, called the Kremlin, and was like, hey Vlad, so both of our populations are getting really angry about small businesses getting destroyed and about lockdowns and about these stupid masks and about these experimental shots. They're both very angry. We're afraid they're going to revolt or something. We need to create some theater here. We need to divert their attention, scare them, and get them occupied with something else. That's what that's all about. It's a bunch of bullshit. I don't think there's going to be any large-scale war with that. So they're very desperate. The whole summary there, deep state is very desperate, and they're going to just try to play different little games. They're running out of time. So the pressure's on. So it's a time to fight or lay down, and you don't have to go, I don't advocate violence. Don't go hurting people, destroying shit, burning shit. Don't do any of that. When I say fight, I just mean know who you are, know what you want out of life, and stand for that, and don't let anyone guilt trip you into doing something different. Or you can get guilt tripped and you can lay down. Whatever decision you make, just be ready to sleep in the bed you made. And then one of the other little themes is shit or get off the pot. And, kind of a time-tested expression in the English language. And it means, are you going to commit to this? Are you going to take the dump? Or are you going to not do it? And, you can always stand up and pull your pants up and walk off and do it at another time or do it somewhere else. It's like, but you have to decide one or the other. So, and in the longer term, the world is really coming closer to this. Decide which way you're going. I don't like thinking about things in a binary, yes or no, this or that kind of way, but sometimes it's fated and things come down to that. It is very yes or no, this way, that way. And as far as our freedom goes, our medical freedom, whether or not we're gonna, cover our faces, walk around like a bunch of dogs with our tails between our legs, that's a real shit or get off the pot kind of a matter. So, yeah, there is that. And then the other thing too is a lot of anger right now. A lot of anger about government overreach. I don't even have to go through that. If you're watching this, you're probably well tuned into all the government overreach that's going on. A lot of you, most of you probably are much more up to date on it than I am. I don't watch or read a lot of news. I know the name of the tune. And it's just the day-to-day details that change, so I'm not really following it closely. So many of you could really bring me up to speed on things. But yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the astrology where people are angry about government overreach, about all the control freakishness, and about the, not just government manipulation, but the real manipulators behind the government. So at this point we're talking the banks, as always, and the pharmaceutical companies. 20 years ago, it was the military-industrial complex that was really leading the way on manipulating the government and using them to get what they want. Now it's big pharma. So, but military-industrial complex and the food companies and all banks, they're all still there, but the big pharma is kind of the leading horse right now in manipulation, in using the government to get what it wants. So yeah, and then the other thing too, when it comes to like overreach of authority, I think there's a real thing in here about self-criticism. So one of the biggest things that holds us back from following our hearts, following our souls, doing what we want to do in life, is just listening to our own inner critic telling us what we have to do. And it's giving us bright ideas. Granted, you need to think, you need your intellect to solve problems, to straighten the details out, but it's probably, intellect is the least wise part of you. It has the least wisdom. It knows how to organize things, index things, categorize things. It knows how to compare things in the present to things it's experienced before. It knows how to basically create fantasies and project what it knows onto the future. But it doesn't have the wisdom of the mind and the soul. So it can only go so far. And the intellect is a big player when it comes to this internal criticism that we use to keep us from doing things we want to do. So that's another thing too, is people are going to be, I talk to people lately, there's a lot of inner conflict going on about how people are going to move forward in life. So, and really, that's the ultimate form of tyranny, is the limitations you put on yourself. A tyrant in the world is only effective if you allow yourself to be tyrannized by that person. If you allow your inner critic to take over and lead you to submit to that person. So everything on the outside is just a reflection of what's on the inside. So yeah, again, it's not rebellion time yet, and it's a really stagnant, it's going to be a stagnant feeling kind of a month, and then at the end I think things are going to free up. When you look at what Bill Gates was saying, and he's like, well, the COVID pandemic will be over in March. Well, the pandemic will be over when all of the big companies have FDA approval for their COVID shots. because right now they can only push them under emergency use, authorization, whatever. Because these things are experimental and they haven't had the proper testing. But once the FDA gives it the blessing and doctors can just hand these things out without emergency use only, then the pandemic will just go away, because then they can hand it out and there's no controversy over the untested experimental nature of these things. So yeah, I see that freeing up in March, and then one of the big things, I don't know, end of this month, beginning of March, I think these are, like, as far as Joe Biden's health goes, so we're talking natural causes here, or maybe Secret Service will hit him with a syringe of, something lethal, I don't know which. But I think he's kind of in his final days with the dementia and everything. His circulatory problems. The guy's had 2 brain aneurysms since the 1980s. He was pretty like late 30s, 40 when he had the first one. I'm sure the cocaine didn't help in the in the 70s and 80s, but is what it is. So I think as far as his health goes, I think he's in his final days here, and that's going to be a big shakeup. So when that happens, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I'll make another video about that because there's a lot of moving pieces. So 17 minutes. Let's keep this short today, and I'll get back on it later in a month here. So February 1st, to start the month, we started with a Capricorn new moon. So again, the new moon, it's the darkening of the light. It's the conception of things. So I look at new moon as conception, full moon's the birth. So you had a new moon Capricorn, 18 degrees. Saturn was at 21 degrees at Capricorn. So new moon was conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, its home sign. You had the Mercury retrograde in there at 0 degrees at the miracle degree, and then Pluto at 2 degrees. So this new moon, especially when you have Mercury and Pluto in there, it's basically Mercury being the intellect, it's in retrograde, it's reviewing things. It's basically going back and reviewing everything having to do with government and officialdom and authority. And I think it was a new moon about people being critical about figures of authority and institutions of so-called authority, taking a second look and really being able to kind of reform their views about it. And Pluto being in the mix, the god of the underworld, Pluto is tries to help us to heal deep wounds and just things that are not in order, things that are not right. So, and then the new moon being conjunct with Saturn, Saturn being at home in Capricorn. Saturn at home in Capricorn is very restrictive, very controlling, but it's also setting things right. So this was a new moon about being critical thinking, and setting things right in government. And Pluto being there brings all the secrets behind the scenes of government into play. And then for America, that sign of government, Capricorn, is the second house of wealth and money, all that kind of stuff. So, and really, it's like everywhere in the world, money and business are the government. But in America, it's very sort of plain. It's more honest like that. Especially like in Europe, Australia, they put on this show, Canada, they put on this show like the government's in charge of everything. But it's really the opposite way around. So yeah, that new moon was a big thing to start the month. And I said February 2nd, right after that new moon, we went right into Imbolc. So in the belly, the fertility festival, planting the seeds for the year. February 4th was an interesting day. This was the day that Mercury stationed, so it stood still after being retrograde, stationed at 0 degrees of Capricorn, the miracle degree. So This phrase miracle degree, in Vedic astrology, 0 and 29 degrees are the miracle degrees. At 0 degrees, it's right on the cusp of the previous sign, so it's like all of the energy from the previous sign is built up at that cusp. Then at 29 degrees, a planet has traveled through the whole sign and it has accumulated energy, and it's built up quite a lot of it. So 0 is like birth, 29 is like old age. You know, baby has infinite potential energy, and an elderly person kind of has like, figuratively, you know, an infinite potential of wisdom and knowledge and all this stuff because they've lived the whole lifetime and there's a lot to draw upon. So they're the miracle degrees, 0 and 29, and really amazing, crazy things can happen when planets are at that degree. So the 4th, Mercury's stationed. Mercury being the intellect, it's going to take, so now it has to pass through the shadow period. It has to go forward through all of the degrees that it retrograded through. So Mercury is going to be taking a very close look at government and helping to rearrange things after it went and did its review on government, because again, it retrograded in Capricorn. So everybody's eyes are going to be on government, and you know, it's going to take years to really redesign and rearrange the world, but now is the foundation of it. Now, the other thing on the 4th, this one was a doozy for me anyway, because I'm a Cancer. Capricorn's my 7th house. That's about how I deal with all the other people in the world. Saturn and Sun on this day were conjunct 21 degrees of Capricorn. So Sun and Saturn, they're kind of looked at as mortal enemies, because their natures are very opposite. Sun is all about, it's your soul, but it wants to just give you everything that's going to make you feel fulfilled and happy and content. It just wants to go out and get all that, because Sun is so big and so expansive and it's so fiery. Saturn, on the other hand, is very restrictive. Saturn is the one that imposes limitations, that teaches us lessons. So they have very opposite natures. You know, the Sun is like the king or the queen, like the royal who's just ruling by decree, and it's saying, okay, you go over here, we're going to do this, you go over here, we're going to build that, blah, 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 and we're going to do a campaign, and you know. But then Saturn is a government minister and comes and it says, Your Majesty, we don't have enough time, money, or manpower to do all that. So pick 1 or 2 things and we're going to do those. When we get finished those, we'll see what we're capable of doing after that. So it's, you know, Saturn's the official, the government official or minister that just tells the ruler what they don't want to hear, but is very true and must be dealt with. So in terms of, you know, the whole world, this was basically a couple of ways to look at this. Saturn and Sun and Capricorn conjunct. On the one hand, it's the people wanting government to loosen up, to just back off, let them live their lives, but you just can't wish the control freakishness out of government and out of their corporate masters. On the other hand, it's other people, it's kind of people on the other side of the coin wanting government to be more restrictive, to make us wear masks for the rest of our lives and force vaccinate everyone and, you know, do all that fun stuff. But then government's like, well, we can't do that because we'll have a revolution overnight, so we're doing our best, you're gonna have to suck it up. And then for America, this deals with government, but it also deals with that business world, and, you know, with wealth, finance, all that kind of thing. So there's conflict between government's corporate sponsors and the government itself, and what the sponsors want them to do, but government's saying we can't do that. A lot of different layers to this. Basically, Saturn and Sun, it's like this tug of war where you want something but you can't have it right away. You're going to have to wait. So that's kind of the deal with that. Yeah, and then, the last thing with that day, there's going to be fallout from this Mercury retrograde. Things are going to come out about shit that government has been up to. Deceptive things at the behest of their corporate masters. So then we're going to move on a little ways. February 12th, that Mercury, that newly direct Mercury comes conjunct with Pluto at 3 degrees of Capricorn. So we're going to be more mindful of government manipulation and sneakiness and deceptiveness. So it's going to come out slowly. Not everybody's going to agree on it. It's not going to be undisputed truth, but little by little we'll start to see it. All right, February 13th, Sun goes into Aquarius. Aquarius is the future, and it's thinking about what it is that you want. What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to get out of life? And how are you going to do it? Aquarius deals with a lot of details with science and knowledge and putting the information together. So this is the time of the year, just at the beginning of spring here. It still kind of feels like winter. We're planning what we want for the year and even years down the road. February 16th, this is a pretty good, kind of a big day. Full moon in Leo. So, this is at 4 degrees of Leo. This is right near Regulus, the royal star, the heart of the lion. So this is going to be a day where people are really thinking about the plans they want to make for the rest of the year and for years to come. And again, this is 2 weeks after Imbolc. So Imbolc is the planting of the seeds. So, and Leo is all the things that gratify your heart. So, and this is really about the birthing of those plans. I think we've been thinking about what kind of world we want to be in going forward, especially those of us who want freedom to prevail. So this is a time to really start taking steps towards freedom. What else? Oh yeah, and on this very day, Mars and Venus are conjunct in Sagittarius. So, and this is interesting, Mars and Venus, Mars is widely acknowledged as the warrior planet. Venus is also a warrior. In America, in France, I'm trying to think where else, Ireland, like places that had revolutions against the old imperial systems. You get this goddess Liberty. Ireland, they called her the Rebel Liberty. And that's a personification of the goddess Venus. And this is why America has 5-pointed stars everywhere. And so many countries have 5-pointed stars. With the point up, it's the goddess Venus. With the point down, it's Mars. It's not Satanism. There are stupid, kind of cheesy, uneducated Satanists who think that's all about Satan, but it's about Mars. It's, it's the flip side of the coin. You get the 2 pentagrams that mean 2 different things. So most countries put the star up. America uses them, China, Russia. Especially the countries created by revolutions in the last 250 years. Created via these social experiments. Those countries tend to use the stars the most. Countries that originated in this last Pluto cycle and in 2024, Pluto makes its return to where it was in 1776, which was also the year of the founding of the Bavarian Illuminati. So, in these groups who control financial interests and big business, they've been running social experiments and fomenting revolutions and starting these countries. So yeah, those countries that were part of these social experiments, like America, they use the pentagram with the point up, planet Venus. So anyway, Venus and Mars are both warrior planets, like I said, like the Rebel Liberty, Lady Liberty, especially in France. There are these paintings of her from the French Revolution, fighting alongside the people. So, yeah, they're both warrior planets. Mars, as we know, is like the aggressive conqueror. Venus, though, is more of a protector. So Venus goes to war in order to protect people rather than, just going out to conquer land. So I think it's a more healthy expression of warrior energy, even though, like in the Norse tradition, you have Tyr, the Mars god, the war god, who gave up his sword hand in order to try to prevent violence. He had the Fenris wolf bite off his right hand, his sword hand. So, really healthy expression of a war god, in my opinion, when you're thinking about Tyr, or Q is another name for him. This is where Tuesday comes from. So anyway, Mars and Venus in Sagittarius. This is like, it's kind of a push-pull between people wanting to fight, people wanting to maintain peace. It's sort of, and because it's in Sagittarius, it deals with justice. And justice is based on about our interpretation of the information dealing with what's been going on in the world. So people don't have a common narrative. So they have different concepts of what justice is. For some people, they want to see Tony the Rat, aka Dr. Fauci, and Bill Gates, and a lot of people in government go to like a Nuremberg trial for crimes against humanity. Other people want to see the unvaccinated force vaccinated, and they consider that justice. So there's going to be a push and pull between how that justice comes about. And both sides, all sides will see themselves as the protector, the more Venusian, the more Venus type, and they'll see the other side or sides as more Martian, more aggressive and looking to conquer. So a lot of division right now, and it's not going to just clear right up. So yeah, a little tidbit. And the last day I'm going to talk about, we're not doing too bad. Last day I'm going to talk about February 27th, end of the month. There is another Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn. 0 degrees of Capricorn. I think what this is going to do, because again, Pluto, Mercury, and Saturn are also in here. Saturn and Pluto are rearranging, reorganizing, changing the face of government. Saturn will be doing this for the next almost 30 years till it meets back up with Pluto in Aquarius. So, yeah, Mars and Venus at 0 degrees of Capricorn. This is, government is going to see the anger of the people and the aggressive potential of the people really come to their doorstep. And I think this is going to be a time of government backpedaling about all these lockdowns. And really, the lifting of the lockdowns has a lot to do with all the big drug companies getting their shot approved by the FDA. That's all they really wanted. It wasn't about, twisting their evil mustaches and laughing and keeping us in perpetual lockdowns. That's not the end goal. The end goal was to just get their shot authorized so doctors could just hand them out like candy. And less people would ask questions. They want to take away the hesitancy in people for getting this thing. So, yeah, government is starting to get a little threatened. We've seen with the trucker convoy in Canada, egomaniac Justin Trudeau fled his house because and went into hiding because he was convinced that the truckers were coming specifically for him. Yeah, being a narcissist is a real bitch because it opens the door to huge paranoia. So, yeah, government's going to backpedal. Yeah, they are afraid. And really, they need to be afraid. They always need to be afraid of their populations because psychopaths are attracted to power and they need to be kept in check in any system. I don't care which one it is. So yeah, we're going to see this kind of push and pull, you know, teetering on war and peace, and it's going to be directed at governments. So they're going to backpedal, and you know, we're going to start feeling better. Things will kind of pull back, but you know, don't get too smug about it and think it happened just because you share the right stuff on social media, or you went to a rally in Washington, D.C., or you supported the truckers. Because remember, Bill Gates said by March this thing will be over. So they're getting enough of what they want where they can pull back. But like I said, at the same time, they are alarmed when people start to rise up. So, and into end of month too, you know, sun is coming up on Jupiter. It's 5 degrees away in Aquarius. So Jupiter and sun together, it really like, Jupiter's an expander. So it makes your soul feel more gratified. And especially since it's an Aquarius, it's all of the things you want. It's about your future. Helps you feel gratified and feel good. But at the same time, it can make people kind of egotistical. Because sun's also the ego. When it gets expanded by Jupiter, it can get a little out of balance, a little cocky. So, you know, just mind yourself. So that's that. I'll be bringing more your way. And so this breaks a long absence. And if you've not had Vedic astrology or a rune reading with me, I highly recommend it. Great way to step back, take a new look at yourself, and just see yourself from a different light. And it helps you to be confident in things that you intuitively knew about yourself, but really weren't quite sure of. So my website is down in the comments. You can check that out. And I will talk to you later. Have a nice one. Thanks for tuning in.